Well, the next three questions that have been posed for me, I'm going to put together again and talk about them all together. The first one is, what do you think is the most important theological discussion going on today among Catholics that will have far-reaching consequences for the American Church? And the second of these is, what contribution do you think American Catholic theologians have made to the Church at large? And the third is, what is of greatest concern in my work? I want to put them together because when I started thinking about the most critical theological issues today, of course I think about ethical issues. And those issues today, generally speaking, are specific ethical issues. These are the issues that are tearing the churches apart. No church is being torn apart on questions of the virgin birth anymore. They are being torn apart on questions of how to relate, what choices to make regarding death, how to exercise human sexuality, and so on. And it's true across the board in the Christian churches. It's also true in Jewish temples, etc. So that set of questions, difficult questions, which keep growing. I mean, there are days when I'm working on, as I said, national committees and the new issues that come up regarding reproductive technologies and so on. Some days I say, let's just stop, because nobody has all the answers to these questions yet, anyway. And we may never have the last word. But in the meantime, we have to get some wisdom on them and make decisions about them, and try not to let ourselves be pulled apart by them, alienated from one another. But along with the ethical questions are questions of ecclesiology. Because immediately, there are some questions. I have a friend who used to say that all women's questions were like, they had the Midas touch. Everything King Midas touched turned to gold. Every question women touch turns into a question of authority for the churches. And so ecclesiology questions. What do the churches do with a membership and an educated membership and theologians who are exploring these questions as faithfully as they can? And yet they find themselves either evolving the tradition or critiquing it. What kind of a church can accommodate faithful exploration of these issues? And I suppose along with those two questions, the ethical questions, the ecclesiological questions, is the question of pluralism. If we finally are not going to see alike each and every specific ethical question, can we live with that? And how can we live with that? I mean, how much disagreement can there be and yet have a faith community hold together? Because nobody wants to just water it down, to homogenize beliefs into the lowest common denominator. Nobody wants to do that. But is there a way to have a kind of dynamic pluralism where we aren't complacent about, well, okay, we agree to disagree? Sure, that keeps the peace, but it doesn't help our growth in wisdom. So, but how dynamic pluralism, we continue to talk about these things, to search together, and to respect one another. So that kind of cluster of issue, which is and it's altogether a kind of theological cluster of issues, seems to me most important right now for the life of the churches. Others might say, and I would agree with, I would say, well, the biggest question is how to keep the parishes alive. I don't disagree with that at all. I'm just saying from my vantage point, these are the ones that look most crucial to me.